Welcome. Today we will be discussing Andy Bennett's book, Culture and Everyday Life.
Yes, an important source for pop culture studies.
It examines modern lifestyles and identities from the perspective of the relationship between culture and everyday life. It addresses the processes of identity formation in popular culture.
What we call everyday life is no longer a simple, uniform concept. With globalization and increasing mobility, our experiences seem to have become fragmented, and we find ourselves in a constant struggle to make sense of things. So how do we construct meaning in this fragmented world? We will take a look at that.
How exactly do culture and our everyday experiences interact? How do they influence each other?
Yeah. And what's truly intriguing here, I think, is how these ideas, maybe once seen as pretty uniform, shared by everyone, are now understood as much more what? Fragmented and particularized?
Fragmented. How so?
Think about our big cities, right? Global mobility, diverse communities all mixing together. Our main source for this culture and everyday life really challenges us to grasp this rich complexity. It's not simple anymore.
Okay, so our mission here is to explore this tension. Are we just sort of passive sponges soaking up the culture around us? Or are we actually active creators? Shaping our own realities within this whole dynamic landscape. What does this constant back and forth really mean for you?
It's a fundamental question.
Definitely. And to really get a handle on it, we probably need to rewind a bit. Let's go back to the mid-20th century. This is when thinkers like Adorno and Horkheimer from the Frankfurt School came up with a pretty provocative term, the culture industry.
Right? The culture industry. And this raises a really critical point they were making. They argued that things like, say, Hollywood movies, popular music, it was essentially pre-digested stuff.
Pre-digested meaning?
Meaning it wasn't really about empowering people. It was more about subtly manipulating our free time, our leisure, basically keeping us locked into the routinized pattern of working life.
Keeping us in our place. Almost.
Kind of. Yeah. Adorno, for instance, he strongly felt popular music was so simplistic it required no listening skill. He worried it contributed to a kind of dumbing down effect.
A dumbing down. Wow. Yeah.
He believed it led to this withering away of the individual's capacity for critical thought. As Heller put it, it was honestly a pretty bleak view of where society was headed.
Similar approaches can also be found in Marcuse's book, One-Dimensional Man. He said that if both the employer and the employee watch the same television program, this is not a sign that differences have disappeared, but rather that they have been made invisible.
Similar approaches can be found in Lefebvre. He argues that late capitalism separates what people are from what they think they are in their everyday practices. Similarly, he emphasizes the distinction between what is thought to be lived and what is actually lived.
That sounds incredibly bleak, like we're just robots programmed by media. But then things shifted. A completely different perspective emerged. Exactly. The cultural studies movement, I think drawing from Gramsci, they seemed to flip this whole idea on its head. They argued we're far from passive. How did they see our role differently?
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, they saw society less like a factory and more like a contested domain, a battlefield of ideas almost.
Okay.
So in this view, you're not a passive dupe. Individuals are seen as active agents, people who reflexively appropriate texts and images.
Reflexively appropriate. What does that mean in practice?
It means we take cultural stuff, a song, a movie, a fashion trend, and we don't just swallow it whole, we actively interpret it. We bring our own experiences to it, infuse it with meaning, essentially inscribe new meanings onto it.
So we make it our...
Exactly. This transforms everyday life itself. It becomes a conscious, almost creative act of making meaning a reflexively articulated cultural process.
Right. Okay, let's make this concrete. Let's bring it to life with some real-world examples from the source material that show this active side. How do audiences really interact with media beyond just, watching?
Well, audiences are far from passive. Think about older soap operas like Dallas. People didn't just watch. The source mentions how viewers would actively work on the show.
Work on it. How?
By discussing storylines, characters filling in the off-air gaps with their own theories and conversations, they were effectively keeping the storylines alive even when the TV was off. And you see it today too. Obviously, with new media, the internet, young people aren't just consuming content online. They're creating virtual communities built around shared interests, like fans of the Canterbury sound music scene, using forums to connect, to explore, and promote their own identities.
So it's way beyond just what you watch or click on our active shaping of culture. It also extends to how we present ourselves physically, right? Like through fashion choices?
Absolutely. Fashion is a massively potent visual symbol. Think about youth cultures. Punk rock is a classic example.
Right? The safety pins, the ripped clothes.
Exactly. They used those shock tactics. They made these spectacular transformations of commodities, taking everyday items and turning them into statements. It was a way to signal resistance against, the socioeconomic situation at the time.
A visual rebellion.
Totally. And even seemingly more mundane choices, like wearing secondhand and retro fashions. That wasn't just about saving money. It allowed people to carve out individuality and distinctiveness to challenge the dominant stereotypical ideas about how you should look. Experimenting with identity.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about the soundtrack to our lives? How does music fit into this active shaping of culture?
Oh, music is huge here. It's actively operationalized by audiences as a means of making sense of their everyday lives. It's a resource. We'll take the fusion music. Bhangra beat for young Asians in Britain. It became this really powerful resource. It helped them forge a distinct Bra Asian identity, navigating what were often contradictory experiences, between cultures.
Music as an identity tool.
Yeah. And think about personal stereos like the Walkman back in the day. That gave users a whole new kind of control. You could create your own personal cinematic experience just walking down the street.
Choosing your own soundtrack.
Exactly. You could modify his/her experience of the outside world. You were literally curating your own reality through sound.
So it really comes down to this. Whether it's the shows you stream, the clothes you choose, the music you put on your headphones. These aren't just casual throwaway choices.
Not at all. They actually represent your active role, your role in defining your own identity, negotiating your place in society. The real deep dive, perhaps, is realizing that every click you make, every outfit you pick, every playlist you create, it isn't just about personal preference.
It's more than that.
Culture is both a force that shapes and perhaps controls us, and at the same time a source for us to express ourselves and liberate ourselves. I think what is important is to be aware of this complex interaction and to be able to interpret our own lives through this lens.
And let us leave you with this thought. When we are bombarded with such intense cultural messages from all sides, is it really possible to create a completely authentic everyday life, free from all these influences? Or are we actually creating our own unique college from what is offered to us, whether we are aware of it or not?
An important question. We have summarized the main points of the book, but this work also requires detailed reading.
I agree, ours was a brief review. It is necessary to purchase the book and read it in detail.